We are live. Talking
Yes.
the Mickey Mouse Club. Because Wilson's out watching that Milo and Stitch movie?
Lilo and Stitch.
Milo and Stitch. Okay. I don't know where I caught Milo from in my head, but
Hmm.
because I just said the title like 3 minutes ago. Lilo and Stitch. When did that original come out? I don't even know.
I have no idea. The
I
the these Disney movies all look alike to me.
Yeah. If you would
Yeah,
ask
I
me
mean,
when it came out, I would have said, 6 years ago. I don't know.
probably
Could be the
20. I
90s,
don't
could
know.
be 6 years ago.
No,
I have
it's
zero
not
idea.
the 90s. So I think The Little Mermaid
That's the
uh and Aladdin were 90s
yeah.
because they had cartoon versions of the movie with different people doing the voices because obviously they couldn't afford Robin Williams to play the genie on syndication. But yeah, the last ones that I liked, last cartoons that I liked were Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers and uh, Darkwing Duck. I like Darkwing Duck.
I still watch The Simpsons. That's about the only cartoon I ever watch.
Hmm. I don't think I don't watch any cartoons anymore, and the cartoons for kids are ridiculous. They're not fun. There's nothing fun.
Tit Goblin tells us 2001. 9/11 made it go through reshoots, reanimating.
Huh.
Happy 3-day weekend, says 62 Lefty Blues. It's Memorial Day
Right. It's
on
Indianapolis
Monday.
500 on Sunday.
I turned on my regular lunchtime Colin Coward sports talk TV show, and there was
Hmm.
practice racing for Indianapolis instead. I was like, oh, the 500 must be this weekend if they're showing
Yep.
practice racing at
Hmm.
noon on Friday.
Yeah, they did a mock race with a six Oscar Mayer winner mobiles.
Uh,
I don't know who won.
62 says, Paolo, watch some Studio Ghibli movies. Some of those are great.
Nah, not in the mood. I don't watch long animated things. I only if it's over 22 minutes, I don't care. Also, I hate pretty much every anime that's shonen.
I just
I know
saw
that Studio Ghibli is not shonen, but all the 22-minute cartoons are shonen, and I hate all of them.
somebody remade all the Lord of the Rings movies with AI in Studio Ghibli format. Someone's like, all illustrators are going to be out of work soon because of AI. It's like,
Yeah,
what?
never saw Ralph Bakshi's version either. I
Neither
don't
have
think I've
I.
ever seen a Ralph Bakshi movie.
I think I did watch that animated Spider-Man movie from a few years ago. That's the one I watched. Into the Spider-Verse or whatever, the first one. I think it was Into the Spider-Verse. That was the name of
Hmm.
the first animated Spider-Man movie from a few years ago, right?
Right, I think so. Yeah.
I think that's the only animated movie I've watched in I don't know how long. But it was okay. I remember there was a lot of imagination in it. That's about all I remember.
Yeah, let's do 30 versions of Spider-Man from different universes. That's
people people eat that stuff up. They really do.
uh,
I don't like it, but people eat that up. They
we
love
should
30 different versions of Spider-Man.
we should tell the normal people we were tired of multiple versions of the same character in the 1980s.
But a lot of people aren't. That's the problem. A
Mm.
lot of people love that stuff. 62's got another. Bakshi worked on the Spider-Man cartoon from the 60s.
Right.
Wow. Then he did the last
Yeah.
version of Mighty
Yeah, but
Mouse.
I didn't watch any of the animated movies he's directed. That I know he's worked in animation, and I probably saw something else that he did. And probably didn't he do stop motion as well?
I don't know. I still think
Then,
that 60s Spider-Man cartoon is the best theme song ever.
yep.
There's just no topping it, it seems.
Yeah, because the unanimated shows, or is it disanimated shows? You remember the ones from the Marvel Action Hour? Um,
Okay.
yeah, so those had to have the epic chorus that was standard for adventure stuff, and even in the 1960s was way outdated. But Spider-Man gives us this cute experimental jazz piece.
Nice stuff.
And then DC was with Filmation, which ensured that it was going to be goofy. But Filmation did, but it was fun. Filmation did a lot of good stuff. And one thing that good that Filmation did, they had the most faithful screen adaptation of Tarzan ever.
Did
No movie,
Filmation
no
do the
TV
Super
series.
Friends?
Yeah,
Okay.
the first season at least, or the first two seasons. Then when it
Because
turned into superpowers, I think it was somebody else, but I don't, maybe Ruby Spears or something.
growing up in the mid 70s to late 70s as a kid, a lot of our animation was like leftover from the 60s.
Mm,
That Spider-Man cartoon. I think Super Friends was being made. That was one of the current ones. But especially a lot of the stuff that would be in syndication, i.e., you come home after school and watch it,
right.
was all leftover stuff.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that stuff on satellite.
Mhm.
Rupert Murdoch's TV channel in the UK, Sky One, had a lot of cartoon blocks, and they would repeat a lot of stuff. But they showed Super Friends every once in a while. But the thing is, I don't know how the rights are distributed on those, because I only saw Super Friends. I never saw Superpowers. I
Ah,
remember watching Flash, Superman, and Superboy, Batman and Robin, along with the Lone Ranger from Filmation on Portuguese TV when I was 6 or 7, and it was never rerun since. So I haven't seen them since then. But Tarzan was also on that time, but not on the same block. On It
when
was
you say
actually before lunch.
superpowers, was that a tie-in show with the figures and
Yeah,
the comic?
yeah,
Okay, I don't think
yeah.
I
Because remember,
ever. That one like didn't even make my radar because I was probably in like. I remember the figures came out when I was in college, my freshman year of college.
right? Because you remember they came up with Black Vulcan and the Samurai and Apache Chief,
Right.
uh, right? But then for superpowers, they went back to get the characters they didn't have on the show. So they had Green Lantern and Hawkman, and Darkseid
Uh,
was a villain, and that's why the Kirby was also doing the comic adaptation.
I remember the comic adaptation coming out and me going, kid stuff. Wasn't the least bit interested in it. But by that time, I'd pretty much abandoned most Marvel and DC stuff anyway. So, kid stuff for Marvel and DC. Oh, no, thank you. What's Tid
Though,
Goblin asking us
yeah.
here? I'm a big fan of having retro cartoons and ads play in the studio. I'm biased because I love the mid 90s cartoons, but I don't know how people get all of that dull 70s crap cartoon. That stuff is dumb.
uh, there was good stuff and there was bad stuff. Like
Yeah.
like on Cartoon Network in the 90s, we had all of the Hanna-Barbera stuff. And I mean
Right.
all of the Hanna-Barbera stuff, which means
Huh.
you could figure out what was good and what was bad. And for example, Peter Potamus was bad. Yogi's Treasure Hunt was bad. For some reason, I actually like the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo, which was the one where Scrappy took center stage, and people usually hate Scrappy, but I didn't mind. So also there was that Vincent Price lookalike look-alike, and it was a bit like having Doctor Strange, even if he was more Mandrake than Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I actually didn't watch many cartoons as a kid because we couldn't turn on the TV after school. We were
Mhm.
supposed to go out and play and do our homework. And I can remember every year, and didn't watch much on Saturday mornings either. But occasionally would. And I can remember always watching there used to be like I think the Saturday morning cartoon season started in September when all the kids were going back to school.
Mhm.
So it's like usually on a Friday night in late August, they'd have a preview show of all the new cartoons that were coming out on Saturday mornings. So I'd always watch the preview show. That was always fun. And I also always loved like around the same time, probably in August, in the comics, they'd have a double page spread of a preview of all the cartoons that were debuting that Saturday morning. I still love those previews. I love those previews in the comic more than I love the cartoons because
Uh,
it gave you a cool look at all the shows that were coming out.
yeah, we didn't have previews for anything. Even the TV guide never mentioned cartoons at all.
Ah,
Uh, they would talk about the new soap operas and the other new soap operas and the alternative new soap operas, which were all on the same channel anyway, because we only had two channels until 1992. Uh, but so if there was a new game show, then they talk about it. There was previews for the movies, but cartoons, absolutely not. Uh, when I was watching TV and whatever cartoon was on, it was on. They never explained why they stopped showing the others, and they never explained why they started with the new ones. Especially because reruns were not popular in Portugal in the 1980s. They showed you something once, they would never show it again. Although there was a show on Channel Two where you could pick which TV series you wanted to watch. So they'd show bits of two TV series, usually something like Perry Mason and Murder She Wrote, or the A Team and Buck Rogers. If they were showing sitcoms, they would play two sitcoms because it was supposed to be a 1 hour block, and so
uh-huh.
the sitcoms were half an hour. So it would be something like Soap or Elf, and then they would have a cartoon. People would vote would call in to vote on which show you wanted to watch, and then they would show it. The thing is, if you were showing episode 22 of something and that one lost, the next time they show that series, it would be episode 23, and they would show the 22 out of sequence.
Weird. Speaking of old comics, one of the ones I got this week is the facsimile edition of Fantastic Four number 48, The Coming of Galactus.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, um, and in case anyone who's never read this out there, what's weird about this is it's part of the classic Galactus trilogy. But the first half of this issue is wrapping up an Inhuman story.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of reads very strange because it like wraps up an Inhuman story in the first half. And then the second half starts the Galactus story. And like comics rarely did that. They rarely took like half an issue to wrap up a story. This is the only one I can think of off the top of my head that does that.
Yeah. Well, Kirby was kind of doing that. I think it starts around issue 32 or something, where
Yeah.
everything becomes continuous, and he's just doing the pages in sequence, and he doesn't care. He knows that the story has to end after a certain number of pages,
Right.
but he doesn't care where the story is, and Stan Lee doesn't care either because he's not writing. He's not actually writing.
But what was weird about this one too, since I was just reading it, was Maximus the Mad. His plan was to, and he thought he succeeded, was to kill every human on Earth. He came up with this big contraption to create vibrations to kill every human being on Earth. And he set it off, and it didn't kill everyone on Earth. And the Fantastic Four were, see, humans are just like Inhumans. And Medusa was like, we're really humans. The only difference is our power, see? And I was like, no one's going to mention he just tried to kill everybody on Earth. That seems like it's a super evil. That's above and beyond the call of evil right there. And then they just went on like, then he cut off the Adelon from the rest of the world. Then they got on with their. And by the way, this was also the issue that was the nail in the coffin for me for figuring out that Stan Lee was bullshitting. Because I can remember being a kid, and I figured out, like I said, I loved reading Origins of Marvel Comics and all that stuff. Like, I loved the history of comics, of course, even as a kid. And but I had never read the Galactus trilogy because it just wasn't available. It wasn't reprinted anywhere. Never. And I remember, I can't even remember where I read it now. I think it was in one of the Origin books with Stan Lee talking about the creation of the Silver Surfer and how he was this, he got the pages back from Jack, and there's this silver, little surfer, little figure on a surfboard flying around. I was like, Jack, who is that guy? And he made it sound like he was like a background character or something. But no, he's the main character at the beginning of this. It's like, there's no background. He wasn't flying around in the background. He was the story. But of course, Stan had to pretend that he wrote this stuff. So this is where I finally I was like, all right, Stan's just bullshit, because there's no way that the writer doesn't know what the story is.
Right, and now that you have writing forensics, you can tell. There are probably a lot of comics where it was Stan telling Kirby, okay, so this issue they fight a magician, and and then he comes up with the Miracle Man, with the villain in issue number 3. But then, okay, there's going to be the Kree Sentry and Ronan the Accuser. Okay, that's Kirby. Kree Sentry, Ronan the Accuser. Just with the names, that they were Kirby.
We're making 62 feel old.
You shouldn't call yourself 62.
62. I'm 62. But it was fun reading this old. Matter of fact, I read early this morning. I read 5 and 6, or is it 4 and 5? Silver Surfer and Doctor Doom, which they were just sitting around. I was in no hurry to read them. So I finally read those. I really enjoyed them, just because I haven't read those in such a long time. And I may have never read them full size. So I'm thinking now, I think the only reprints I've ever had of early Fantastic Four were those pocketbook versions. So they're, that small size. And I think that had the first 6 issues in it. And I've never really been that big a Fantastic Four fan. There's Chris.
Oh.
There's Chris. The new Scotty Young. I was just explaining to someone on their channel that you're not the new Scotty Young. You're the old Scotty Young.
Yes,
right.
Very old. Emphasis on the old.
Scotty Young is to Chris Giarusso as modern talking is to the monkeys. For those in America who don't know who Modern Talking were, they were a German pop group with two ambiguously sexual individuals.
For those in America, meaning basically everyone.
I think Brother Louie played on American radio. I'm not sure about the rest of the songs.
Okay.
But they were very popular in the whole of Europe, except maybe France.
And I had forgotten the ridiculous colors of Galactus's first costume.
Oh yeah,
the red and green with the giant G.
I like that the next issue he's just different with no explanation.
Yeah.
What I like is the Watcher. I am forbidden to interfere. Let me interfere just a little bit more. So
Yep.
I'm going to transport you to Galactus's ship. That's not interfering, because you're the one who's going to pick up the thing that can defeat Galactus, which I'm going to tell you what it is.
When did Galactus first? I mean, when did the Watcher first appear?
About 12 or 14. They had a fight with the Red Ghost and the talking gorillas.
Oh, the Red Ghost
and that was on the moon.
Rapes?
Yeah, and that was on the moon, and they run into the Watcher's domain.
Ah, okay. And Jack Kirby was doing some of his collage stuff here.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I wonder. That looks pretty well printed. I wonder to compare it to the original printing or one of those reprintings. See what the collage looks like.
You know how Marvel had better printing in 1966 than in 1986?
let me see if I can find that Fireside print book of it. I think it's right here.
Well, the Fireside books. No, did they have newspaper print?
Oh yeah, that's way different. Let me see if I can get them side by side and make this bigger just to show you. Oh, yeah, there's details you can't even see. Dude, looks like it's just one solid color. Oops. There they are side by side. This is the Fireside printing with the new one. And you can see, like, it's this one over here. This is the Fireside book. Mm-hmm. It looks like one solid color, that like dark blue over the stuff.
Yeah.
Whoops. It's very different. Oh. Yeah, there's one solid blue down there over that ship on the bottom. Over here over there we've got lots of gradations and things.
Yeah.
Over here, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wrecking my comic. That reminds me of do you know the show Mythic Quest? It's on Apple TV. It's by some of the people who do Always Sunny. And it is a show about a video game company. I think there's 3 seasons of it. It just got canceled. But pretty funny show. I enjoy it. But they just came out with this something called Side Quest, which are sort of like tie-ins to Mythic Quest, but not the main show. Like they just had this show about that took place all in a comic shop. And the tie-in was they were waiting for a comic about the video game Mythic Quest. And I think they did pretty good. They did a pretty good job of a show set in a comic shop, except as often happens, actors have no idea how to handle comics. And it was giving me anxiety. I'm like, oh, stop it. You're breaking the reality. Stop it. First of all, no comic fan is going to ever wrestle over a comic with their hands on the comic.
Right.
because that wrecks the comic. And I was just like, oh, stop. There's like one version of the other person just grab it out of their hand. I'm like, it's never going to happen. And then when the one person is reading the comic, you read a comic a specific way. You open up your hand, you put the spine in the middle, and you gently hold it as it opens up. You don't grab it by this. It looked like a reinforced comic too, because he was holding it by like the back cover was the only thing he had a hold on like that. And it was staying up somehow. So I think it was a cardboard cover. But lots of times they're like grabbing at the comics. I'm like, no, stop it. No comic fan is going to grab at a comic like that. Timey-wimey limey is here.
Mm-hmm. With beer.
Tit Goblin says, Chris, isn't my screenplay the great Hydro, the man with the hydraulic arms? Jared's totally on board too.
You sent me a screenplay? I didn't see a screenplay.
I think he's joking.
Oh, then yes,
and it's
it is
Wilson
great.
who was getting the stuff, not Chris.
It is
but
great.
Wilson's not here tonight.
I'm on board. Let's do it.
Wilson has joked in the past that sometimes he friends someone on Facebook who he doesn't really know, and right away they're sending him things to look at. And he's like, I'm not that. And speaking of Chris, I picked up Legacy number Incredible Hulk 806/25 with the Chris Geruso cover.
Oh, yeah.
Let's show you. Whiskers Wolverine, Wendigo in the back, and of course the Incredible Hulk.
You say Wendigo?
Wendigo.
Never heard it pronounced that way.
I kind of switch between them, Wendigo and Wendigo, because I never knew which was right as a kid. I think at some point they lettered it like someone screaming Wendigo. So that's where I picked that up from.
Yep. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Not like a slur against the Italian Americans.
Timey-wimey said.
That's Wendigo's cousin, Wendigo.
Timey says, currently using Amazing Spider-Man 252 as an ashtray. I'm a comic reader, not a stamp collector.
Exactly.
Tit Goblin says, no, I fired Wilson. He's an asshole that doesn't understand my vision. 62 picked up that Hulk issue too.
But with your grubby hands?
And it was, who did this? It was an okay issue. Once again, the search for the credits. Oh, page 6, 7, I don't know which. The writer is Philip Kennedy Johnson. The artist is Nick Klein. Color artists are Nick Klein and Matthew Wilson. VC's Corey Pettit is the letterer. I know that name, Nick Klein. I probably read some other Marvel stuff by him, but I cannot for the life of me remember what. And it's kind of, especially this Thor stuff, looks painterly. So that's like flashback Thor stuff in this painterly style. Then it switches over to this more current stuff with more black plate in it, but still kind of painterly. And the issue itself was solidly okay. It's one of these Thor versus Hulk stories where there's some sort of misunderstanding because this monster from Thor's past who shows up as a little girl has befriended the Hulk. And she says she's changed. She's not a big monster anymore. Thor doesn't believe him, so Thor and Hulk fight for a while. The Warriors 3 show up, and they go, maybe she's not the same monster. Let the Hulk hang out with her. But it got me to thinking. Hey, Mind the Comics is here, just saying hi and bye to you, dear folks. How you doing?
Hey, man.
He's been busy.
Yeah, I called him up, and but as soon as you're done, I expect you to take up. As soon as you have some time, I expect you to take up that invitation because we miss you.
All right. But it got me thinking about the Hulk. And I'd like the Hulk of my childhood, the childlike Hulk, because, that's what I was raised on. But I can certainly understand writers tiring of that. But I really haven't liked the Hulk since my childhood very much. I've liked some issues here and there, but it got me to thinking, it's without that sort of childlike rage monster aspect of the Hulk, I think it's even harder to write a Hulk story. Like his only sort of personality trait, once you move off that childhood stuff, that childish Hulk stuff, is that he's really strong.
I don't know. I read pretty much all of Peter David's runs, so I do like.
A lot of people like Peter David's run. I understand. I understand it's tough.
Sure.
It's not an easy thing.
Even Mantlo did the Banner Hulk.
Yeah. Like what did I like? I liked the who is it? Bruce Jones, John Romita Jr. Hulk. That was all right when he turned him into the Fugitive for a while. But I think that's really what you have to do with the Hulk, is you have to kind of find your angle on him. Because without that childlike, the madder he gets, the stronger he gets gimmick, there's not much to him. Was Al Vey and whoever the artist was, I don't remember, turned him into the Immortal Hulk, body horror Hulk. But I was like, yeah, I think you have to constantly reinvent the Hulk. Like you don't really have to do with like Spider-Man.
Right.
You have to constantly reinvent him in order to try to keep him interesting.
Yeah, and Peter David wrote the Hulk for so long that he went everywhere.
Yeah.
There was the Gray Hulk and Merge Hulk and Professor Hulk.
He had to keep changing them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I never really thought about, the Hulk. But imagine that I haven't put that much thought into a comic I haven't read in 40 years. But in reading this one, that really got, because this one was there was nothing special to this Hulk besides the cover. Woohoo!
Heyo.
Heyo. Titcom says, I've never liked Hulk for some reason. The closest I got was Pitt. And at Aliens and Crazy Things. I think I might have like the Mr. Fix-It era too. She-Hulk at times is good. She-Hulk, they've never had her. Well, they reinvented the She-Hulk once.
Right.
And made her more breaking the fourth wall comedic kind of. That it's like, that's it.
Well, that's not the reinvention. The reinvention was when.
I read the original She-Hulk 1, 2.
Right,
and I don't know.
Right, but when Roger Stern put her into the Avengers,
yeah,
he gave her a more interesting personality. That she loved being She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Sure. Since she joined the Avengers, they got rid of her supporting cast, which I don't actually see a problem with. But yeah. She loved being in the Avengers. She became the Wasp's friend. She was pretty strong, but she could be smart, which the Hulk at the time wasn't.
Right.
Just the fact that she enjoyed being a Hulk, which Banner obviously didn't for obvious reasons. It was an interesting trick, and that's why Byrne liked her. Byrne and Stern worked together a lot in the 80s, and when the opportunity came, Byrne stole her for the Fantastic Four. that gave her a yet more visibility. So it's not like she was always joking. The fact that she took over the thing's spot that means that she was the comic relief. That's not what you do in the Fantastic Four.
I think you
But
hit the
she
nail
had
on the head when you said she was smart and enjoyed being the She-Hulk.
right. It's just that when Burt finally got the Shield's ongoing series, he leaned into the
Yeah.
comedy aspect.
So I guess the reinvention happened earlier than I thought.
Yeah,
Not having read any of the comics.
right. Because you read the first few issues of the Sensational She-Hulk, and yeah, I mean there's humor, but it's kind of a continuation of what she had been doing. And the more the title goes on, especially after Burton leaves, it becomes sillier and sillier, and that's what people remember, that She-Hulk is silly.
And here's a weird thing that's on the back of Marvel Comics this month.
Wait,
This, I'm like, and up here it says custom branded content
right?
instead of the comics. I'm like, is this an actual ad? Did M&M Mars pay for this? Or is
Yes.
this Marvel trying to get some ad money for their back covers? Because nowhere does it have the usual. Usually, if it's an ad, it's got some information on there about the product, and this completely doesn't.
Well, you don't need to explain the product. M&M's
Yeah.
is.
But what ad person approves that?
But did you know that in the 80s and 90s, Coca-Cola did not need to advertise, but they did it anyway?
The story always went that, and this is what I learned in advertising class. I have no idea how true this is or was. It was way back in the 80s. Coke discovered that sure, they don't have to advertise, they won't lose sales, but if they don't advertise, Pepsi will creep up on them.
Right.
So that's why they advertise.
Sure, that makes sense.
But I don't know if this is a real ad or not.
It looks like one to me.
I think so. I mean, I don't think to me it makes sense. It makes the most sense that it's a real ad.
Mhm.
But there's
I think-
also part of me that goes, what?
The Comics Code mock logo. It's there to tell people that it's an ad.
Custom branded content. Mars Comics Group. It says, it doesn't say Marvel over there. It says Mars.
Yeah, right. And that's obviously the Dark Phoenix.
No, I think
It's Polaris.
yeah, Polaris, not the Dark. It's the Polaris.
But Polaris does.
Steranko Polaris cover.
Which I think we just proved another thing that it's not a nostalgic, recognizable image.
Well, I think it's too far off from Polaris.
Yeah,
The yellow.
it's missing all the other background characters.
Right,
and,
right.
And there's no, the logos and trade dress are not.
Well, we know that's the X-Men logo design, but
Right.
yeah, the thing is, since she has the yellow highlights like it's fire, that and it's a green M&M, that that takes us to the Phoenix instead of Polaris. Since Polaris has magnetic powers, the use of her powers should not have a yellow highlight.
Yeah,
It should
it's
have
not
a
exact.
white or blue or light blue highlight.
But it's a really strange ad to me. It's just
Mhm.
like I said. I'm just not. It seems like a parody ad, almost.
Yeah, but there's no point in doing a parody ad if you don't have
No.
an ad. You just
Look, I already got a tick in my spine from handling it so poorly.
it's no longer a 9.8.
No way. No way is this getting spine tick, not getting a 9.8. But the red on the front cover is still good. Chris Geruso after Herb Trimpe. With those Todd McFarlane chains.
Yeah. Because no one else does it that way.
I think he was the first. I remember him doing it like a tutorial in like the mid 90s on how to do those chains.
Okay.
And him saying he figured out an easy way to draw chains.
Yeah,
That's why he put them all over Spawn.
Doesn't every single person who draws chains do that?
Yeah, now they do. But
Yeah,
before
that,
Todd
they didn't
McFarlane
know how to do
popularized
that.
it, they didn't, I don't think.
People that drew for a living professionally, who understood construction of shapes and bodies and objects, they couldn't break it down until he came along.
No. He broke it down into an easy. Most people, when they would draw chains, would try to draw them in perspective. That's not what Todd McFarlane's doing. He's drawing them as sort of graphic design shapes. There's not a lot of perspective in them. They're sort of all flat, but they don't look flat because there's so many of them overlapping.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think
I'm calling BS. I don't buy it.
Just show the chains.
You
Just
do
show
the
the
chains
chains.
exactly like Todd McFarlane showed us all how to draw them.
I said I don't buy that he's the first person that figured out an easy way to draw that.
I don't know if he wrote that in the early 90s. And with the coming of Spawn. That was one of the things that he wrote in the Spawn early. I don't remember where I read it, but I did read.
He can say like this, he could say at any point like okay, if you were to draw a figure and
show
say
me
like okay, what I like to
character who was draped in chains before Spawn.
Ghost Rider?
No.
I wouldn't say draped, but he had a chain.
Well, yeah, 2 years
before. Belt, that's it. And
no. Danny Ketch had living chains 2 years before Spawn debuted.
We're going to have to look and see how they were drawn.
Johnny Blaze didn't have chains. Cage had a chain belt. Luke Cage.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of chains in comics before Spawn.
There was that image of Superman snapping the chains.
Yes.
The chains are not supposed to snap; they're supposed to break at the weakest link, and then it's just an iron rope.
And you better believe that Neil Adams drew all those chains in perfect perspective. The look.
Okay, I'll believe it if you show it to me.
All right, I think I got it here in my Let me check my box of reprints. I will find it for Chris. He demands to know. Oh, the short boxes are heavy. Somewhere in here, in completely no order whatsoever, is a. I think I got to look the other way.
You know, Neil Adams. I don't doubt that Neil Adams drew them into perspective because that's what Neil Adams did.
Chris doubts. Chris says Neil Adams is a hack, and there's no way he would draw the chains in perspective.
I'm saying you can draw a thing in perspective and start with a simple shape first.
But that simple shape better be in perspective, unlike your chains, which are not in perspective.
You know, Jerry Siegel did the Superman snapping the chains too, and they're flat.
Oh, look, Black Science #1 is in here. Wonder what that's doing there. I have no idea. Wow, I've got a lot of reprints. I've got a lot of facsimile editions. Oh, and here's the Millennium editions. Millennium Editions, Batman and Robin.
Yep.
Let's see now. Facsimile Edition, first Batgirl. Come on, breaking chains. Not a single chain on any of these covers. Batman and Robin.
You know, I think
Superboy.
you know what? I think you're right. I think you're right. Todd McFarlane is the first person to draw chains.
There we go. Chains in perspective. We got shadows. It's not just the graphic design Todd McFarlane way.
Disagree.
You're almost right. There's a couple of them that are done the Todd McFarlane way. But these ones over here
I'm saying they're all started that way, though.
Of course you start drawings with basic shapes. That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, my God. That's exactly
Chris
what
doesn't
you're
listen
saying.
to me at all, does he?
You don't listen to me at all. Huh?
You don't listen to
Fighting
me at
Jared.
all.
I thought you were talking to Xylon.
Calling Neil Adams a hack.
No, here's Smitty. Here's
so
all you need to
rude.
know. I got to catch Smitty up to speed. Todd McFarlane
That is so
invented
rude.
chains. If you've ever seen a chain in a comic book, it's because Todd McFarlane invented it. And he drew it in every single appearance in every comic book. Because he's the only one who knows how to do it.
Todd is
No one
paying
said
Jared.
he's the
Accurate.
only one who knows how to do it. He said that was the way he figured out, and lots of
Accurate.
people copied him after that.
Todd is sending Jared love checks to say that.
I'm
No,
just
no,
telling you, he wrote that and I read it. And I never noticed chains in comics until Spawn.
So,
Very many. Then after Spawn, everybody has chains.
Jared's making the claim that Todd McFarlane figured out the way to draw chains easily.
And the way he draws chains is
I'm doing that the same way that Todd McFarlane.
you draw one box that way,
And I'm
Wait.
draw
wait.
one box
Like-
that way,
anybody who knows how to draw
and you draw a thinner box in
would do
between
that
them.
naturally.
And they're
So, I've
always
never heard
this
of that. I didn't
way.
know Todd
The
McFarlane-
boxes are never coming at you like that, where you have to draw them in perspective.
Now he's gonna
Instead,
take
you
courses
layer the
for
chains
plagiarism, for chain plagiarism.
to give a sense of depth.
Blockchain.
But Chris isn't listening to me.
Blockchain?
Yeah.
That's a story of my life. Chris is never listening to me.
Okay, so here it is. So this is Jerry Siegel drawing Superman's chains. Are these Neil Adams chains or Todd McFarlane's chains?
Though, well, you see the ones that go right across the front of his chest over the S? Those are
Yeah.
more like Neil Adams chains. I mean, more like Todd McFarlane chains. But the one that are off in front of him that bend back in space, those are the ones going in perspective. And those are the ones that are harder to draw. If you had to draw all the chains in that perspective like that, it'd be a lot of work. If you drew them all like they're in the front of his chest there, that's a lot less work.
What about Ghost Rider?
And,
Javier Saltares?
They said no. They said no.
McFarlane figured out to draw them all like the ones that are on his chest there and just layer them.
Is that
Yeah.
the Javier
Okay,
Saltares?
Chris, come back. We need you to analyze this.
Hold on a second.
Okay, so this is Jerry Siegel's Superman chains.
Hold on a second here.
And I'm saying that the ones right above his S are Todd McFarlane chains. He draws them all like that. The ones that are out in front of him that are bending back in space aren't. They're in perspective. And that's what superhero artists used to do. They would draw the ones going back in space in perspective. Todd McFarlane, like you did on this Hulk cover, draws them all like they're on his chest, except then layers them to get depth, rather than trying to draw them going back in perspective.
Those all look exactly like what you're describing Todd McFarlane doing them.
Yes.
You don't notice the ones out in front of him going back in perspective? They're, instead of being like this,
It's all tricks.
instead of
He
the boxes
blacked in
being
some
like
of it in
this, they're
shadow.
like this.
No.
Nothing's in perspective here.
Those ones going back around him they're slightly in perspective.
I think we just hit a sore spot because Jared loves Todd McFarlane more than anybody else on the planet, and he doesn't like that we're attacking his hero. But we're not attacking your hero.
No, this
No,
is
you're
Jerry
not.
Siegel.
I'm just telling you
This
what-
is
I'm saying this guy did chains the way anybody who draws a lot would draw chains, and Todd McFarlane also did it.
What about the Neil Adams?
And,
image?
and you're not going to believe this. I never really studied Todd McFarlane chains before I drew that Hulk cover. I know you're not going to believe it. It's impossible to
I
believe.
know you didn't, because that's now commonly how you draw chains.
It's not now commonly. It has
How come
been
you
since
didn't
the-
draw one single
I
link
think
of chain in
you
perspective?
proved that it was common back when this whoever.
How
drew
come
this
you didn't
Superman.
draw one single link of chain in perspective?
There's not a single chain like a chain of perspective in the drawing you're showing us right now as your Exhibit A.
The ones going back behind him are, in fact, in perspective. They're smaller than the ones in front of him.
Same thing with
That's what perspective is. They get smaller as they go back in space.
They don't. They're all the same size. Even
No,
the
they're
ones that are coming from Superman's back.
Welcome.
The ones that are in front of on the right side of the drawing closest to him are smaller than the ones that on the left side of the drawing that are further away from him.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are. I can see it.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going with the Chris on this one. No,
You're saying people drew chains all the time before Todd McFarlane, all over comics? Every character had as many chains as Spawn?
they would draw chains whenever somebody was chained.
Yeah,
The thing is,
I'm
they
saying-
didn't.
Yeah, people would draw chains and would find shortcuts to draw chains, but Todd McFarlane came up with, he popularized the way
hold
to
on.
easily draw chains.
Okay,
Those are in perspective. Look at that. See, that's not the easy way to draw chains. That is 100% not the easy way to draw
I think we
chains.
just proved Todd McFarlane didn't come up with it with that Superman drawing.
Didn't
There is
come up
very,
with what?
very.
I'm saying the one.
the easy
I'm
way
not
to-
saying he came up with it. I'm saying he
You just
said
did.
that.
You just said that.
And he popularized chains. I'm saying he look at if you want to look at all the characters draped in chains before Spawn and after Spawn.
Okay, you're altering your argument now, sir.
No, that's what I said at the beginning. You just didn't listen to me like you
You-
never listened to me. I said Todd McFarlane said, I read Todd McFarlane say he came up with an easy way to draw chains. That's why he draped Spawn in chains.
Okay.
Then I said, after that, a lot of people started copying his way of drawing chains.
Well, I just missed the
What
last.
part of that do you not understand?
I missed the last.
What part of that makes no sense to you?
5 sentences because the audio keeps going out and I have to keep on changing my settings. So I missed everything you just said.
All I said was I read back in the early 90s that Todd McFarlane said he figured out an easy way to draw chains. That's why he draped Spawn in chains. And after that, a lot of people copied him and started putting their characters in chains. Before that, there were not a lot of characters drawn in chains with their costumes.
this episode brought to you by Still Chainsaws, available at Home Depot.
Just because you hate Todd McFarlane, there's no reason to take away his credit for popularizing drawing chains.
You've changed your argument. What you initially
What
said
did I change
was
my argument to?
you said
What did I change my argument
nobody
from?
knew how to draw chains like that until Todd McFarlane figured it out.
They didn't generally. Then why didn't they?
I think you just showed us an example that they did.
Yeah, but they didn't more than a couple of. Todd McFarlane popularized it. He figured out an easy way. Maybe it wasn't easy for those guys. He's the one who said he figured out an easy way to draw chains. Maybe they didn't think that way was easy. I don't know.
I think he's saying like for him, I figured out an easy way to do this.
Right.
Look, I'm doing
and then
this.
everybody copied him. So
I
it was
think everybody
obviously
else
easy for a lot of people.
I think everybody else said, yeah, we all do that. We all figured that out.
No, because they didn't drape people in chains till after him. Name one character
But
who was
now you're
draped
talking
in
about.
chains
So
before
now you're
Spawn.
talking about. I would like to draw a distinction between the popularity of chains
How can you
Versus-
figure out how to draw chains if you're not drawing chains?
Wait, let me find out how Kirby drew the Absorbing Man.
There we go. He wasn't draped in chains, but he had a chain.
Yes.
Let's see.
This is the most absurd argument I've ever participated in.
Yes, and according
Chris,
to
you
the
love
chat's
arguing.
timestamp, according to the chat's timestamp, we've been talking about chains for 12 minutes.
Tit Goblin says, I'm backing Chris. In the history of drawing chains, I'm sure that style was around. Todd just popularized it and took credit for it, made it a Todd thing like he does. He always gives Michael Golden credit for the webbing. Timey says, wait, so I'm not the first person in history to solve time travel? I hope future generations credit my incredible work. I'm
Just
not
go
sure
back
whose
in
side
time.
he's on with that one.
Just go back in time so you can claim to have invented it yourself.
And Friar Tuck says, and Rob Liefeld invented pouches and no feet.
Yes, he did.
Timey said Howard Chaykin learned how to use duotone board thanks to me. Fun fact. This is a time travel. Tit Goblin, Wilson is the kind parent that keeps everyone in line. When he's not around, it all goes off the chain rails. Sleepy says, hello, chain fans. Sleepy says, Luke Cage chains are my favorite. He had a chain belt, right?
Yeah. One chain. It didn't move.
Changes turn. Tit Goblin, in the 90s, I started wearing my flannel shirt tied around my waist. I found it an easy way, and everyone followed me. I invented that style. I saw that in the 50s in the Leave It to Beaver. Maybe things move slowly up in Canada there.
Yeah, Kirby did a flat chain with Absorbing Man too.
Oh, but was Todd McFarlane inking him?
No, in this case it was Joe Sennett, as usual.
Huh. Well, that doesn't
Who's
really
up in
make any
Chickstone?
sense.
Wait, is this Joe Sennett or Chickstone? Did Chickstone ink?
I bet anything that it's Todd McFarlane.
Hold on. Now
I
we're
see
going
my
to have
Aretha Franklin impersonation didn't translate into the written word, says Timmy. Yeah, I was going with Bowie.
I think this one is inked by Chickstone. See, we could go on another argument. Which Kirby inker is this?
Doesn't matter who I say it is. Chris will say it's someone else.
It's Todd McFarlane, obviously.
Obviously, you went back in time with Timey Wimey Limey.
if he figured out a very simple way of drawing chains.
Chris says he invented it. Who am I to argue? He invented it on his own. He didn't need no stinking Todd McFarlane. He's never read a Todd McFarlane
Yes.
comic.
Chris Girusso also invented square pizza.
Well, it's more rectangular, really.
You can claim to, Chris. You can claim to have invented square pizza. Nobody's going to tell you that you didn't.
Where did square pizza come from?
Doesn't matter.
He invented
I mean,
pineapple pizza.
Was this a topic that I don't remember? Square pizza?
I don't know
No.
where he pulled it out of. So
I just pulled it out of the head. I'm probably hungry.
I'm tired and hungry.
But
Tiny
nobody
says, chains. I just
Pineapple
write
pizza.
draw a bunch of random lines and then write "Here be chains."
As for pineapple pizza, that was invented by the devil.
That just reminds me. I've been my algorithm on TikTok has brought me to this guy who is really popular too. Does sort of these childlike drawings. So he just comes up with some crazy concept and does these like childlike drawings about it.
I'd like to
And
see how
one
he
time
handles chains.
he was doing a drawing of Vanilla Ice, and he talks as he's doing the drawing. He's like, and if no one knows what it is, just write their name next to it. And he writes Vanilla Ice on the drawing.
Or just have the drawing say "Word to your mother." Everybody will understand.
Sleepy Reader says, when I was a kid, I invented a way to draw chains I copied from Rich Buckler.
That's right. Who does that Rich Buckler think he is?
Pit Goblin asks, Chris, how did you survive each day in the bullpen? Who says he survived? This is a ghost you're talking to.
Yeah, I'm like the broken shell. Became the broken shell that you see before you now.
A life model decoy.
Chris was broken when he got to the bullpen. Thomas used to have to tell us, leave him alone. He's fighting the wars. In his head. Let's see. I got a first issue this week. Xander Cannon's Sleep. Which is done in grayscale with some red glasses and such. And this is kind of really just an introduction issue, setting up, because Xander Cannon's really good at world building. So we really don't know what's going on in this first issue yet, but the main concept behind the comic is when this guy goes to sleep, a monster comes out and bad things happen. That's all we know. So, and it starts with him waking up one morning and people calling him up and saying, how did you miss the monster last night wrecking our town? And then he goes about his day. It's really about introducing the character and him go. And then I think he falls asleep at the end. So mostly this issue is world building, but I trust Xander Cannon. I like that cover of Sleep. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And Sleepy Reader says, quite a departure from Kaiju Max. Yes. And he notes the departure from Kaiju Max in the back where he says something like Kaiju Max had like 50 characters and this one's going to have 8 or something like that. He gives exact numbers here somewhere, but I don't know where. Let's see. And he actually letters by hand on the computer. I did not know that. So he's just like this crazy. He's like, it's just this crazy style I came up with and keep going with. So everything in his book is hand lettered. It's just digitally hand lettered.
Isn't that more work?
Yes. It is more work. But he said it keeps him from rewriting too much. There we go. Here's he says, notably, I hand lettered all the words on screen. It's an absurd and time-consuming undertaking, but it's pretty satisfying. And it reduces the late-stage fussing around that comes with more conventional digital lettering.
Oh, yeah.
Working this way on approximately 1,000 pages of Kaiju Max gave me a pretty clean and readable lettering style. A nice skill to have. But I got to say, it doesn't look particularly hand lettered or digital. I mean, it's very clean. So it looks clean in a sort of digital way, but I would not have guessed it was hand lettered. But it also has got like variation in the letter forms a little bit. So,
Yeah.
So it was a good first issue. What was that?
Todd Klein. Todd Klein is a very clean lettering style as well.
Well, almost all lettering styles are clean nowadays since they're digital.
Yeah.
But if you look back at the older ones, they're not as clean.
Right. But Todd Klein used to do clean even more than Tom Marzakowski.
Let's see. Sleepy asks, I've seen several times Canon mentions uncredited layouts at DC. How common is uncredited work at that level? Not that common as far as I know. I've only known it was a few times it was really done. And usually they were credited at Marvel, like in the 90s. But sometimes, like an artist would just like pay somebody to do layouts on his own. I think that's where the uncredited stuff might come from. Like an artist might be like, "Oh, I'm behind deadline. I got to get ahead of the store. Do you want to do some layouts for me?" Because there's some artists too who the layouts is the part they least like. But it's still, I don't think it happens that often.
Yeah, because they have to at least share the money. And
Yeah.
there
What
was
about
a
you,
guy
Chris?
in the 50s. Chris,
There's a guy. I was gonna ask Chris. Do you remember anybody doing layouts for pencil for like a separate penciler?
Like that I knew of, like firsthand.
Yeah, that you just happen to see along the way, like Xander Cannon doing layouts for, I don't know, Mark Teixeira.
All I knew is Kirby doing layouts for a lot of books, just as a way to get Kirby to write more books.
Right.
yeah, but those are
This
those
isn't
are
quite
credited.
that. Yeah. So you
Right,
never
and-
saw it at Marvel, you mean, right?
No,
Yeah, I only saw it a little bit, not even that much. So I don't think it's that common.
But there was one guy in the 50s who did it a lot. Les Cavern would take a job for a short story, and he would have somebody draw everything, and he would ink it and sign it, and he would be the one who collected the money, and he would pay the main artist.
Right.
John Romita used to do that a lot for him.
Oh, that's right. I was just reading that in the John Romita biography.
Yeah.
Kirby got layout credits at least. He did later on. What was that trick Stan Lee was pulling? He would
Get Kirby to do the layouts so that the other artists would learn how to draw like Kirby.
Not that, even before that, he would take.
I thought it was because it was a way to trick Kirby into writing, or not. I don't know if trick, but like
Yeah,
writing the book essentially.
Stan Lee would get the money for plots, but he would do that even early. But that was like in the superhero stuff. I think in the monster stuff. God, what was I reading? How did it go? Sometimes Kirby would do the layouts, and then he'd give it to someone else to ink and write, and Stan Lee would take the money for the plots. It was some weird, it was all. It was
that was late. That was late in the game because there were a few stories which are credited Lee and Lieber.
No, I'm thinking stuff before Lieber.
No, those were no.
There was some shenanigans
writing
going on with. I think they used to redo plots too.
They did a lot. They did because the ones that they identified were from one of the 50s guys. Not Hank Chapman, the other one. That I always forget the other one. Let me check here because I got the thing here. I always forget. It was still there was some leftover plots. The thing is, there's some idiots who, because the new story is signed Stan Lee, they think that Stan Lee came up with the concept in the original story, but no. They Stan Lee would take the story panel by panel and then have a new writer, a new artist draw this the same way, and he would claim to write the dialogue as well. But that predated.
Yeah, that's the late 50s. I'm thinking of. I think he would take an old printed one and give it to a new artist, and then get the money for plotting it, even if he didn't plot it in the first place.
Okay, I'm trying to open a 70-page Word
Nah,
document.
he's got to look.
That's where at my database because I always forget that 50s writer.
62 Lefty Blue says, that called Bob Kane? Created by Bob Kane, the
Yeah.
master of taking credit.
Carl Wessler. That's the name I always keep forgetting. There are a lot of recycled Carl Wessler stories. Probably a few by Jack Olek. And as for Don Rico, I have no idea. I'm pretty sure that half of the uncredited stories in the mid to late 50s are Don Rico scripts, but they're not credited.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. There are a few guys that I usually see them credited once or twice, and then I hear that they were regular writers, but I don't see that many credits. And that's people like Jack Olek and a guy called Bert Froman. Yeah, I don't know these guys.
Oh, and I did get my in the mail my latest version of Gatsby with some high schoolers' notes in them. I always find that fun. A lot of notes at the beginning I can't quite make out. Cole Strangler? I don't know if that's a made July 2004. With underlinings and notes. Fragmentation, work, land, ash. But it made me realize that here's my comic book analogy to The Great Gatsby. Is that one of the reasons that like The Great Gatsby is taught in high schools and stuff a lot is not only because it's short enough for high schoolers, only a couple hundred pages, but you can dig through it and find like symbols and symbolism that aren't really obvious. And it's like going to a comic shop and looking for issues of Spider-Man. You know they're going to be there. Maybe you'll find the ones you like. Maybe you find the ones you need. Maybe you won't, but there will be issues of Spider-Man. That's kind of what it's like looking for symbols in Gatsby. There's just so much going on. Daisy, flowers, simple. Conception springs up of life. I mean, there's just like, you can see. Memories. Why, of course you can. And there's just like, there's even people who have dug through Gatsby to find all the colors in it because he uses colors a lot. So those are simpler. Disembodied voice of something. Time is lost. So it's fun reading through some high schoolers' notes in The Great Gatsby from 20 years ago. Just one of the things that amuses me in life. Sleepy says, how many versions of Gatsby do you have at this point? I don't know. We probably got 20, including the graphic novels, maybe 20 different versions. They're like buying a comic. They're only like $5 or $6 a piece. And I got this one just because of the notes in it. Sometimes I buy them just for the covers. Tit Goblin, Jared, why do you like the book so much? What is the main thing that makes you collect and muse it? There's a few things I like. First of all, I like the language of it. It's very well written. And like I said, there's so many symbols and things in there that you can constantly find new things about it. And one of the things that I like about it too as I get older is that you can relate to each and every character more as you get old. It's like, I think the older you get, the more you find yourself having been each character in Gatsby. It's like, there's Gatsby, who's the dreamer. Jordan, who's the cynical athlete kind of thing. They've all got their own little Daisy, who's the princess. Maybe you won't find yourself being a princess too often, but every now and then. Nick, who's sort of the everyman narrator. That's who we think we are every day. Tom, who's the asshole. You're going to find yourself being the asshole every now and then. You'll even relate to Tom. So that's one of the things I like. I like that there's a lot, and he deliberately put a lot in it. That's what he was trying to do, and I think he succeeded at it. Me and a lot of other people think that. Wait, if I'm a reader and not a collector, why do I have 10 different editions of Dune? Damn. Solid
because when you travel back in time, you just have to get another version of Dune.
But I think you can still have 10 different editions of Doom and still not be a collector. In that you don't really care about the 10 editions of Doom. You care about the concept of Doom. If someone were to break into your house and steal your 10 editions of Doom, you'd be like, I'll have to get some more editions of Doom. Do you buy books of Gatsby analysis? Yes, I have. Matter of fact, I just showed one a couple of weeks ago that I got from New Essays on the Great Gatsby from 1985 or something. And I've got. Let me show you a couple of my analysis books. They're right here. There we go. I actually just listened to two of the. Two of them I just listened to. I've read them before, but I listened to them. We have got. This is the one I just got. The Great New Essays on the Great Gatsby. This is from 1985, though. This is, and so we read on. How the Great Gatsby came to be and why it endures. So this has got a lot of history of the Great Gatsby in it. And this one I particularly like. This is a Gatsby theory that developed around the turn of the century. Jay Gatsby, a black man in whiteface. See, there are some people who think that Jay Gatsby is actually a white passing black man. So he's, he's multiracial, but he can pass for white. And this is, their evidence for that. Then it's a pretty interesting read. Cool. You're all in. I sure am.
No, that's ridiculous. Everybody knows that Gatsby is Jack from Titanic. He somehow survived. And he became rich.
But that's a real interesting book, the Gatsby being a white passing black man. Puts a whole new angle on everything.
Hey, Jared.
Yeah.
Do you read every copy you buy just to see if it's the same?
No. And I've actually, I buy them mostly for the covers and for the notes. I bought, well, the one I bought, I didn't know there were notes in it. This one I just got, I bought just because I knew there were notes in it. Timey says Gatsby is Marty McFly from Timeline D. And of course, I have a bunch of Gatsby comics in my Gatsby collection now, too. At least 3 adaptations plus God's, Monster Piece Theater with Gatsby versus Godzilla. Mm-hmm.
The next one should be Gatsby versus Uncle Scrooge.
Scrooge McDuck. I can't remember what the name of the... I just got a new... because usually when I'm in the car, I listen to the book on tape of The Great Gatsby. And I've got... let's see. I keep a running tally of how many times I've listened to the book on... the audio book. And... it's a lot. But... let's see. Michael... I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different versions of the. Matter of fact, I just got a 9th version of the audiobook. Different people reading it. Only one woman so far, though. I want to get more women reading The Great Gatsby to me. But the one I just got now, it just came up on Audible, so I bought it for $2. I think it was just someone making the own version, because the guy's reading so fast, and he's mispronouncing certain words that makes me go, what? What's going on here? And then I'm like, is there some, Penn Station in New York, Pennsylvania Station? That's mentioned in The Great Gatsby. But in this particular version, he calls it Peninsula Station. And I was like, what? Peninsula Station?
Maybe that is from Timeline D.
Maybe. It's supposedly he's reading the very first version of Gatsby, where on the very first printing, where I think on subsequent printings they cleaned up a couple of typos and things. But I can't believe that Peninsula Station would be a typo. So I don't know why he said it. And he also doesn't know how to pronounce certain words, like wan, W-A-N, like which means white or pale, often used to describe someone's. It can be used as just to describe something as white, like your skin can be wan, or it can be used in a connotation of pale, sickly. And it's W-A-N. It's a fairly common. You don't hear it that often, but it's been used in literature a lot. But the guy who's reading this book keeps saying Wayne, and I'm like, how is this a professional audiobook and you don't know how to say the word "wan"? Shouldn't somebody in there tell him? He must be one guy doing it on his own, and he just doesn't know. Because I think that happens sometimes with public domain audiobooks. If you were to narrate one audiobook, Paolo, what would it be?
I don't know.
You can't think of one novel you'd like to narrate?
No.
How about you, Chris?
I can't remember the last time I've ever read a book. So
you guys got to read more.
Yeah, we've got time to read.
Those of us who have to commute. It's amazing how I have no time to read when I'm not commuting, but when I'm commuting, I got time to read. Matter of fact, I was just pondering this afternoon. My semester ended last week, so this week I've had no classes to teach, and I'm like, how have I gotten no more reading done than I did on a week when I'm commuting 2 days a week? I'm like, I thought I'd get more because I got a whole bunch of graphic novels piled up to read. Read all my regular comics, but let's pick another regular comic for you. Here's one I don't have much to say about. Null Hunter. Issue 8 of 10. The 12 Labors of Hercules. This time, our lead character, who I guess is Hercules, is trapped by these bounty hunters, so his sidekick, this kid, has to try and rescue him. And it's a solid B comic. I really would probably be getting more out of it if I knew anything about the 12 Labors of Hercules.
Either wash the stables.
I know the stables part too. How is that the part we know? Cleaning out the stables. I know he fought a lion.
He fought a lion, and to wear his skin, he had to kill some annoying birds. What else did he do?
No idea. Was he chained up somewhere, or was that Sisyphus?
No, that was Prometheus.
Prometheus, okay. Sisyphus rolled the rock up the hill.
Yeah.
Prometheus
he
was
was dead.
chained and vultures pecked out his liver.
Hmm.
Okay. Timey says, I recently found a discrepancy in 2 editions of Elric, so I have definitely added the missing text. I used a pencil so as not to annoy future collectors too much. I love
All right.
books with writing in them.
All right, he killed the Hydra.
Okay, he shined his shield like a mirror. That was him to kill the Hydra.
Yep. No, not that Hydra. The Hydra of Learned, the one with the
Oh, that's
head off.
Medusa. I'm mixing up
That's
Medusa
Medusa,
and
yeah.
the Hydra. Hydra was cut off one head.
And 2 shall take its place.
Okay.
We serve none but the Master, as the earth shall soon serve us.
See, Tit Goblin says, I like that everyone has a favorite book. I think mine is I Am Legend, Paolo's obsession with the novel adaptation of Gremlins
Yes.
2.
I'm not sure that the novel adaptation of Gremlins 2 would work as well as the movie. People didn't like Gremlins 2 because it leaned more on the jokes. But I mean, they're puppets. What else are you going to do? You have to tell jokes.
I saw Gremlins 2. I remember nothing of it.
Well, the doctor from Star Trek Voyager is there. So is
Uh-huh.
Grandpa Munster.
There is an excellent Key and Peele sketch where they give you the writer's room of Gremlins 2.
Oh,
There are an awful lot of Key and Peele sketches, aren't there? I see them on TikTok a bit. And there's always at least one more I haven't seen.
4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Gremlins 2 it's fantastic. Yeah, look it up. Everyone look it up. Just do yourself
Look
a
it
favor.
up.
Yeah.
One thing I did finish reading this week is back issue number 31 from December in 2008. And this is the Steve Gerber tribute issue.
mm-hmm.
And it's really weird reading these old issues again. And like when it was a tribute issue to Steve Gerber. So it's like he's died all over for me. It's like Steve Gerber's dead again for me. Because it was all about his career. And I realized I mostly read Steve Gerber as a kid. And his was some of the favorite stuff I read in the 70s. Have you read much Steve Gerber, Paolo?
No.
I mean, it starts with like some of my favorite stuff of the 70s was his. Of course, they called it the weird Steve Gerber stuff to begin with. Well, first, of course, there was Howard the Duck. I liked Howard the Duck as a kid. It was a lot of fun. And of course, I followed all the lawsuit of Howard the Duck stuff when I was in high school, because I think I was buying Comics Journal then. So, and what do they call it? So the first part is all about Howard the Duck. They go to the Howard the Duck comic strip. Oh, Gerber's Gruesomes. Because when he started his career, he was doing a lot of horror stuff for Marvel, which I never really noticed. Man-Thing. He did, what's that zombie guy? The Living Zombie.
Oh.
So he started out in like the black and white Gerber's Gruesomes checklist. Here we go. Adventure into Fear, 11 through 19. I forget who that is.
That's Man-Thing.
That's Man-Thing? Okay. Chamber of Chills. Creature on the Loose, 28 and 29. Dracula Lives, 1 and 2. Haunt of Horror, Man-Thing, 1 through 22. Marvel Comics Super Special, Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel Presents, 3 to 7. That I don't know if I get that. That's the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's one of my favorites.
Yep.
Marvel Preview, 12. Marvel Spotlight, 14 through 23.
14 to 23. Wait, Spotlight.
Marvel Spotlight. That's man. They must show it in here. Let's see if Lilith Fair. Damien Hellstorm.
Right, that was Son of Satan. Yeah.
Son of Satan. Supernatural Thrillers 5, Tales of the Zombie 1 through 8. So like Tales of the Zombie, I never knew existed as a kid. It was a magazine from 73 to 74. So that was slightly before my time, and it was a magazine. So I would have
Supernatural
never
thrillers.
seen it.
That's the first story with the golem, I think.
Ah. But that's really how he started his career with these Gerber's gruesomes. But listen, Marvel preview, that was always one of my favorite. One of my favorites was the Marvel previews with Marvel Presents, pardon me. Marvel Presents with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Have you ever read that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And it's the best Al Milgrom, I think, too.
Oh, definitely. I think I talked about this once because Al Milgrom in the 1970s, when he's still young, is crazy and experimental and
Right.
doing a lot of weird stuff. And then he starts working on stuff at Marvel, and everything after that, it's just kind of there.
You just don't have the time anymore.
Mhm.
Sort of like when I read Carmen Infantino called his work an unfinished symphony, because when he was his best in the 60s, he took, the job on staff as publisher. And then when he didn't have that job anymore, he was not very happy. They would go from Gerber's gruesomes. And of course, they've got a whole article on.
I'm not sure gruesome is a good adjective to describe.
It was just the horror stuff. I think they just needed a word for it because like the Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't particularly gruesome.
No, it was absurd, and so was
Yeah, I think
Man-Thing.
they're just looking for an angle. Shanna the She-Devil, he did a little of. Steve Gerber in the Marvel Universe.
Defenders.
Yeah, Marvel. Shanna the She-Devil. Submariner. I forgot he did it. He only did a couple of Submariners, I think.
Mm-hmm. Near the
He
end
did
of the run, I think.
Daredevil. Oh, that's right. He was he created Angar the Screamer, right?
Was it him?
I think that was him. Let me see. Daredevil 97 through 101 and 103 to 117. Yeah, that had to be him. That's a crazy enough concept for Gerber to have created.
Mm-hmm.
He screams and you go on an acid trip. So I liked his I had those issues of Daredevil because they were before my time, but there were some of the issues I got around the neighborhood. And I always liked those issues of Daredevil. They weren't great, but I liked them. Same with what was the other one? Let's see. I didn't realize he didn't do that many issues of the Defenders. Where's his Defenders? Defenders 20 through 29 and 31 to 41. So that's about 20 issues.
Yeah. Which is kind of ironic because Omega the Unknown was finished in Defenders by not Steve Gerber.
Oh, and there's a Omega the Unknown article here. And at the end of Omega, they wrote to be finished in the future issues of Defenders because Steve Gerber was writing that book.
Mm-hmm.
But then he left, and I think it was who was the editor? I think the editor was Ed Hannigan. They even said I didn't realize he was an editor at Marvel. Cancellation and Beyond. Stephen Grant would end up with the task of finishing the Omega story without any knowledge of how Gerber and Skeens had planned to tie it together. Yeah. Oh, it was Al Milgrom. Grant explains that Al Milgrom, there he is again, ended up as the editor of the Defenders after the fallout from Gerber's exit. Oh, and Ed Hannigan was assigned as the regular writer. Okay, there's where I get Ed Hannigan's name from. Grant says, by the time Al got the book, virtually all the mail on it was from people wanting to know when Omega would wrap up in the book. And by the time I got to Marvel in late 78, Al was sick of it. He wanted Omega out of his life for good. Ed, however, didn't want anything to do with it. Grant goes on to say, I'd written a Defender fill-in issue, which ended up being published many years later, featuring a female Yondroth, and Al asked if I'd finish off the Omega storyline so they could get on with their lives. I was eager for any work, so I said yes. In retrospect, it probably wasn't one of my brighter decisions, but nothing I can do about that now. I hated the wrap-up to the Defender. As an Omega fan, it was just terrible.
I still can't believe that the Comics Code approved it. I mean, they're so focused on superficial stuff, like there's sex, there's too much violence, you can't have red blood. But then it's noticeable in the plot, guys. They just blew up a 12-year-old boy. Okay.
Here's how they explain the ending. It was a convoluted explanation, but an original one, turning the reader's expectations on their heads. In the story, Grant further explains that the reason for the faceless creature, the basic concept of Omega was you have Omega the Unknown, and you have this 12-year-old boy, Jan Michael, and there's some connection between them, we don't know what, and these faceless robots trying to kill Omega, but we never found out what it was all about. In the story, Grant further explains that the reason for the faceless creatures, the robotic creators of both Omega and James Michael, seemed to be so intent on destroying both of them was because Omega had become too powerful. The alien race he lived with had granted him the ability to tap biospheric energy, an energy which would inadvertently destroy the Earth. Omega's abilities and consciousness were to be transferred to James Michael, and the faceless pursuers were actually trying to save Earth by destroying Omega and James Michael before the lethal biospheric energy was released. So the two people we thought were the heroes of the story were really the villains.
Nope.
Confronted with that knowledge and unwilling to destroy Earth, kudos for James Michael, turns the biospheric energy inward, imploding in a crackle of light. There's your 12-year-old boy dying. Grant explains that both Omega and Starling died by the end of the story because that's what the editor wanted. I didn't especially care one way or the other. I was only interested in the story. Grant adds, Ed Hannigan didn't think I'd gone far enough. His following issue opens with Omega's corpse being buried in the sun and reduced to atoms. He didn't want anyone ever mentioning Omega again. In retrospect, Grant admits that his conclusion to the Omega saga had some problems. I had no idea what I was doing at the time. So looking back, I'd say structurally a mess, and I'd probably do it differently today. But I still like many of the ideas there. I dislike it in practice, but not in principle. Grant also says, I don't think it was an inappropriate ending to the series. It just wasn't the one Steve had done, whatever that was. I've got a problem with it in principle. Turning the two heroes of the story into the villains.
And there's a lot of technobabble there. And what do you have to do when there's a lot of technobabble? Biospheric energy. We need to reverse the polarity.
You can't go wrong with reversing the polarity. Unless you can. Unless it blows everything up.
Mm-hmm. Besides, you know how tricky that biospheric energy can be.
Oh, yeah. But it was a little sad reading that issue of Back Issue. And his later stuff I didn't even really know about, like his Hard Times. Did you ever read that?
No.
Hard Time. I think I read the first issue and thought it was okay. That was like a 12-year-old kid in prison. That was a what was the name of that DC imprint?
Helix?
It was pre-Vertigo, or where'd it go? I never read Nevada, which came out from Vertigo. What was the name of that line? Yeah, Nevada was about a stripper in Vegas and an ostrich.
Yep. I remember the ads.
That's hot.
And Hard Time was about, like I said, a 12-year-old in prison, but his spirit could leave prison or something. There was DC Focus.
Oh, I remember that.
And it was like the only comic that lasted a year from that line.
Hmm.
Then he did something for
Wait, a 12-year-old boy who shifts his spirit outwards. Does that spirit have powers or something?
I think it may.
Hey, look,
Let's
it's
see.
the Omega the Unknown wrap-up.
A Boy Behind Bars. Let's see. So what was Hard Time about? Gerber described the basics of the series like this. Hard Time is the story of Ethan Harlow, a high school student who took part in what he thought was a prank, a fake high school shooting. That turned real, leaving 5 people dead. Ethan was tried, convicted, and sentenced to 50 years in prison. Now, behind bars, he's discovering that he has a strange power, the ability to release his consciousness from his physical form. His body is imprisoned, but his mind is not. And his roaming psychic force can act directly, often violently, upon the physical world. And there was 2 volumes of it. The second volume was the first 12 issues. So it was 12 issues and then 6 issues. And then they put out a 7th issue of the second volume 50 years later, where he was getting out of prison. I said, I want to read that last issue now, where he's getting out of prison. Then he also did another series for, where is this for? It's
There's an omnibus published in 5 years ago.
the Ultraverse Sludge.
Huh.
There was an omnibus of Hard Time?
Yeah.
Wow. Sludge, which was a sewer monster that he did. Let's see. Tommy says, I love it when writers technobabble time travel. Time travel isn't real. The Guardian of Forever driving the DeLorean is just fine. Like time travel stories, I just want them to make up the rules and stick to it. I'm okay with everything else. Nevada was good following a Vegas dancer and her ostrich. Vertigo series, yeah. I've heard good things about that one. I've just never read it. Just never read it. But like I said, it was a little sad reading back issue memorial to somebody who died so wow, 2008 was not yesterday, was it? I'm glad I'm rereading these rather than buying new ones, because they're just sitting around otherwise.
Yeah, that's the reason why I stopped buying back issue, was because I was buying them. I didn't have time to read them, and I can't just, and they pile up.
Right.
Those things
And
were
then you
thick.
feel guilty. You're like, oh, I feel guilty. They're piling them up. It is tough. It is tough to find time to read. But what I did when I started reading novels again, I don't know, 5 years ago, I started reading them because I found myself, like, if I'm taking a break, and this is how you can read some books, Chris. When I found myself taking a break from work, from drawing or whatever, I'd sit down in my chair and I'd surf the internet or whatever, and 20 minutes would go by like that. And I'd have accomplished, and I'd be like, what did I just spent those 20 minutes? I remember nothing about those last 20 minutes. So I'm like, why don't I try reading for those 10 or 20 minutes instead? So I started, reading a novel in those 10 or 20 minutes. And so that summer I finished 6 novels and enjoyed it. I knew less about what TikTok dances were hot. But that's
Yeah,
something you can do when you take a break for 10 minutes.
I'm not willing to make that trade-off. I need to know the dances.
I know you are very up on your hot TikTok dances. So
Yep.
Whip It is coming back. It's hot again.
What, from Devo?
No, there's another song called Whip It. I have no idea who does it. I just noticed it was coming back because people were saying this dance is back as a trend. So that's the extent I know of it. But I saved some videos of it in my archive.
All right, well, I'll
Because
probably spend the rest of
sometimes
the
I
night
archive
learning
like
the dance.
videos I see in the internet, like TikTok ones or Instagram ones, just because I know 5 years from now they're going to be gone and that trend will be gone, and I want a little memory of it. Like one of the ones I just discussed, it only happened this winter, and I'd already forgotten about it. Do you remember when it snowed in Louisiana and Florida? Do you remember that weather event, Chris?
No.
It only happened, I don't even know when, February? But there were lots of people in Louisiana and Florida posting videos of themselves seeing snow for the first time. And it was not a little flurry snow. It was 3-4 inches of snow.
I remember because NASCAR's certified public accountant owned a team in IMSA, and they had a Portuguese driver, and they were testing for the Daytona 24 hours. So I called the Portuguese driver, and so why was it snowing?
But I have a folder full of seeing snow for the first time videos, just because I saved them then and put them in a folder.
Oh, thank God you got those.
Yeah.
They'll come in handy.
I'd like to archive things. Little events along the way.
Too bad there was no ATM receipts with that one.
I know. But there's computer receipts, so I can go through the. Let's see, another comic I got this week, mostly for the cover. So I think it looked better online than printed. Is this Joe Quesada cover on Whatever Happened to the Crimson Justice, which is a Mad Cave comic. I just kind of liked the cover, and it's a Mad Cave one. They usually make some good comics. Frank Thierry is the writer. Inaki Miranda is the artist. Eva de la Cruz is the colorist, and Dave Sharp is the letterer. Of course,
shout out to Dave Sharp.
Shout out to Dave Sharp, and of course it's oversaturated, so it's wavy. And the art inside is fine. And I have to say it was a solid comic. It was a solid B, but I don't think I need another solid B on my pull list. Imagine if Batman quit when he was younger and 30 years have passed and Commissioner Gordon is still up on the rooftop sending out the bat signal. Just in hopes he'll come back one day. Every now and then he goes up there and flips on the bat signal until one day the Joker shows up and kills Commissioner Gordon. And now Bruce Wayne, who's been running a diner, that the mob uses, is finally coming back. So on the last page, there's the Crimson Justice again. So it was fine. It was well done, well crafted, fine. There's Dr. Mayhem killing not Commissioner Gordon. There's the not Joker killing not Commissioner Gordon. And Crimson Justice is not Batman. It was solid, like I said, but I probably won't at $5 an issue. $3 an issue, maybe. You ever read a comic like that? They're like, that was solid. I just don't need to pay any more for it. Solid but expensive.
That might be.
So
After
what
all,
are you thinking?
I've got Chris Geruso covers to buy. What's the next cover you got coming out, Chris? Has anything been announced?
That is everything.
That is everything you got in the pipeline right
That's
now. Now he's got to
everything.
get more in the pipeline.
Yeah, now it's back to the old drawing board.
Mm-hmm.
Now DC.
What are you
have
working on
got-
tonight?
I just got a pile of sketch covers that I want to go away, so I'm just going to start sketching in them.
He sounds so happy about it, doesn't he? Ah, okay. Who are they? Let me make it bigger. Hold on.
It's the Teen Titans, or just the Titans. I'm basically just trying to do that.
Okay.
Yep.
Do. Teen Titans.
So those are the adult Titans.
Yeah,
They are.
They do look.
There'll be
It doesn't say
mini
teen in it. It says Dawn of DC Titans.
Was that an official sketch cover
Yeah.
or one you made?
No, that's an official.
That's an okay. It's got the logo up top. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I don't like when they do this. Like, oh, we'll put a gradient on there.
Messing up your color.
Yeah. But hey, whatever. Hey, whatever, right?
I've got a. I saw it on. I've got it in my watch list on eBay, but since I'm at my $10 buying level, I haven't bought it. Someone drew a Gatsby sketch cover on that Gatsby miniseries that came out a couple years ago. I was like, oh, look at that. Someone actually drew a Gatsby scene on one of these. So maybe one day I'll buy it, but not to. It's only $60, but I'm reining in my spending at the moment. Maybe I'll get it at the beginning of the next credit card cycle, which is almost here. Since I don't have train tickets to pay for. Of course, nor do I have a check coming in.
Well, for promoting Todd McFarlane's genius, you deserve a love check.
I do. Even though Chris was trying to bring him down. He's no love checks for Chris, that's for sure.
For some reason, I feel like people that know how to draw can kind of come up with the most obvious solution available on their own.
Yeah, I like how you came up with that obvious solution after reading Spawn for years.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Very good. Solutions in front of you, you can come up with it. Everything's easy after it's invented.
Yeah.
Dude, now I got that Whip It song going through my head.
I like
Dude.
Jared. You're basically admitting that you think drawing chains is the hardest thing to do in
It
drawing.
is. It is the hardest thing to do in drawing.
Yeah.
I've admitted it.
Okay.
I'm not inventing any costumes with chains draped all over.
Y'all thought this was over, didn't you?
How many costumes have you invented with chains draped all over them? You've created a lot of costumes. Show me the chain ones.
Again, you're changing the argument again.
You're the one who says it's so easy to draw. There got to be chains everywhere.
Yep.
I'm going to see if we can get Sleepy Reader to comment again by arguing more about chains. That's the only time he comments. Do 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 do. Oh, here's another thing I was thinking about buying, but it's too expensive at the moment. Here's the latest issue of Out of Alcatraz. Tyler Crook and Christopher Cantwell. Timey is still upset about us laughing about Total Recall. He says arguing about chain drawing expertise is much more important than analyzing Total Recall, a fine use of our time. Man, I could think of...
Did I miss the Total Recall conversation then?
There was no conversation. It was last week when Timey tried to start a conversation, and I said, Total Recall, who cares? And then Paolo agreed with me, and we refused to talk about Total Recall. Much to timey-wimey-limey's chagrin. You know what? I think that's a word I use a lot that no one else does. Chagrin.
Chagrin?
Yes.
What we can talk about is whether there really was somebody named George Kaplan in North by Northwest, but we just never saw him.
But anyway, back to Out of Alcatraz for a moment. Another terrific issue about men in trouble who escaped Alcatraz or trying to get through with their escape. Somebody caught them to bribe them into having to kill this person, kill his wife. Now they're trying to get out of that. But the reason there's this painted artwork. Let me show it to you. Big. By Tyler Crook. That's just terrific. And he's got these pages for sale on his website. And I really want to buy one, but they're like $400 a piece, which is totally fair. I just don't have a spare $400 at the moment. But really good comic. But what's strange about it is the covers look nothing like the inside. He's doing this sort of the man with the golden arm, late 50s, early 60s. Who am I thinking? The guy who did the title designs for the man with the golden arm. I've mentioned this before and couldn't remember his name. Probably for this comic. He's doing that sort of motif on the cover, but the insides look nothing like that. They're sort of a time period watercolors. So if it's an interesting juxtaposition, let's use that art school word. But if you're not reading Out of Alcatraz, you should be. Let's see. Timey says it was a tough and valid lesson. You can't make people interested in a topic, although you can judge them for it. You can always judge people. Whenever someone says to me, don't judge me, that's when I know I should start judging them. Oh, there we go. Saul Bass. There's the name I couldn't remember. I think he's doing a Saul Bass thing. Someone had to tell it to me last time. I couldn't remember his name.
Sal Bass? All you did was change the one fish for another.
Tit Goblin says, is there any cover collection books for old Vertigo covers? I'd buy them just for their covers, but there's so many good ones. I don't know. There might be a... Who's the guy who did the covers for Sandman? Another name I all of a sudden can't remember. Everyone here knows his name.
Yes.
Sam Keefe?
He was like the premier cover artist of the 90s.
Dave McKean.
Dave McKean, there we go. I think there's a book of Dave McKean covers. I don't know about Vertigo as a whole. And annoyingly, remember I mentioned, I don't know, a month ago, about there being I found out too late, not that I necessarily would have gotten it anyway. There was a book of Wicked and the Divine, the covers, that was kickstarted. And I only found out about it afterwards when people started getting their books a few weeks ago. And on Blue Sky, I keep seeing people, because I follow Jamie McKelvey too, who's the artist on the book. And he keeps reposting people, receiving their books from the Kickstarter. they're like, great, I got the, and it's a big hardcover book of all the covers and the Wicked and the Divine. And I was like, oh, cool. I wish I could have gotten that. But then I realized that though the Wicked and the Divine had a lot of good illustrations on the cover, that was one of those books where they ran the whole logo right down the cover, obscuring the illustrations, which always annoyed me on that. I can't stand the covers because they have the logos right down the middle of them. And it's just like, oh, that's so annoying. I want to see the illustration. Then I realized it's funny because in most comic book cover books, because I love books on comic book covers, I like the logo to be on top. Like often they'll make books of comic book covers because nowadays, you know, you can strip the logo right off. It's just a layer in Photoshop or InDesign. So you can easily print them without their logos. And that's usually what, if you buy a book of comic book covers nowadays, you don't get the logos on top. But I'm looking at, I'm like, did they print this book with or without the logos over the illustration? I have no idea because no one shows the interior of the book. They just show the cover. And I'm like, I wish because most books I want the logos on. This book, I want the logos off. And I haven't been able to find, there was no YouTube video looking through the book. I couldn't find any pictures. You can barely find one for sale on eBay because it was a Kickstarter. And that's nothing anyone's going to speculate on. Let's see. Timey says, thanks to the power of reverse psychology, my next book is solving 20 canonical pop culture conundrums. It's called Is Deckard a Replicant? Because everyone cares about that question.
Mm-hmm. Or Deckard and George Kaplan, the same person.
Is Deckard a replicant?
Is Jay Gatsby the same person as George Kaplan?
Is Gatsby a white passing black man?
He's actually
The
Asian.
evidence for, the evidence against.
Well, he's one.
Oh, is that?
Right?
Maybe pretty good evidence there for it, but, you know, plenty of evidence against it too. Let's see. Tit Goblin says the Dreaming number 33 from Vertigo is my top 10 90s covers. Decades later, I still can't pick out all that mixed media in that thing, or most Vertigo photo mixed media covers. The Dreaming number 33. I don't know that one. I'll have to look it up. Let me write that down. Oh, we lost Paolo. Where'd he go?
What did you do?
I don't know. We lost him. We'll have to see if he comes. There he is. He's back.
What the hell happened?
I don't know. It kicked me out. Maybe it kicked you out while I was over at the comments. Because before when I first started this up, before you came on, it kicked me out. And it always kicks me out when I'm over at these comments. So maybe it kicked you out because I was over at the comments.
I'm trying to help you out.
Trying to help you out. Okay, Thomas. I just found these cool looking business cards. I must have got some of these at Mocha. Under piles of paper at my desk. This is, Natalie Sedul. She used to be a student of mine. Scan that and see her art. Who else do we? Oh, this is the guy I bought that comic from. That big book. OhioIsForSale.com. I'm going to have to put these in my business card section. What one is this? Tom Weirkey. He must be someone I met at, because it's a game artist. Up there's the front. There's the cat looking out of the dryer. There's the back. There's the inside view of the dryer. I must have met him at Mocha too. Oh, this is the guy. This is the hand cut business card. Hell, Florida. That's the book I got. He was sitting next to the other guy, Tom Bone. What is this? Oh, this is one of my former students. Will Bihio. Reads the same both ways. And there's there's a pronunciation guide to his name on the back because that he in the middle is a G in his name. Let's see, what else do we have here? HCA Bazant?
Zabajant.
Jabazant.
No, the other way around. Zabajant.
I am not sure exactly who this is. Must have got it at, and then, let's see. Ken Brown, Stuff. Guess those are ideas going into the grinder and coming out as something. T-shirt designs. And let's see. Hand-drawn risograph printed with these hand. Find comics and prints at jtyost.com.
Which Yost did I know?
I'll have to look this stuff up. Because when you're at Mocha Fest, you just get things from people, and
Yeah.
sometimes you don't remember. You must come home with a lot of stuff from cons and such, Chris, huh?
No.
No? People
mean-
don't give you their cards and
That doesn't really happen much anymore.
no?
Everything
Everybody's
is
online,
yeah, everyone's got social media, so it's just
right? I've got my link right on my phone. You just scan my phone screen.
Or nobody really cares about me.
There's that.
Like, I'm not wasting a business card on this jabroni.
He's just some artist. Who do they
Nothing
think
he
he
can
is
do.
with his pencils?
I got one more card left. It's for Scotty.
He's trying to be the new Scotty Young. That's all
Yeah.
that kid is doing.
That's it.
Scotty Young is the Scotty Young of the new millennium.
Shall we do a read, rip, and slab?
Let's do it.
Let's pick an old decade for this one. Let me see. We haven't done an old one in a while.
You don't have any 40s. You usually don't.
No, I got 40s, 50s.
Let's do a 40s then.
Let's
We
do
never
a
do
40s.
40s.
Where is my, let's see, work, RRS. Let's do 1944 March. Drop that on that. Failed to open page. What are you doing? Safari can't find the file. I just put it there. Oh, okay, that's the other one. Go back to here. Go to present. Share screen. Window. There we go. 1944 March. We've got Super Comics number 71, Super Magician Comics number 25, and Prize Comics number 41. Some good covers there. A flaming hand, a bondage cover, and
Dick
that's
Tracy?
supposed to be Dick Tracy with a green hat?
That's not very well drawn, is it?
Maybe it's not Dick Tracy.
Is Super Magician Harry Blackstone?
Good question. Featuring black names, most, what is that?
Black Magic's most evil weapon, the Hand of Glory.
Hand of Glory.
And I have no idea.
In-
This one's a Dell.
In Pennsylvania's hex-ridden hills. It does say Blackstone over in red over on the side, so.
Okay, in that case, I am going to rip Super Comics.
Oh,
I
man.
just don't like that cover. So now what do I want to do? So I think I wanted to read Super Magician, but that's also a better one to slab. So I guess I'm going to slab Super Magician and read Prize Comics, because I want to know who that guy in green is and why he wants to kill the patriotic-looking superheroes.
He's obviously evil. Let's
Of
see. Kit Goblin wants to read Super Magician, rip Prize Comics, slab Super Comics, and Dolphin the Cab Driver.
I'm going to Dolphin, the bad guy, on the Prize Comics cover. He's the one with the. It's going to be a dolphin with a green hat and green domino mask holding a gun.
Here's the question. Could you, if you were to dolphin the flaming hand, would it just be a flaming dolphin?
Yes, it would. Because why not?
Because dolphins don't have hands. And it couldn't just be a flaming flipper, because then you wouldn't know what it is.
Yeah.
I want to read Super Comics. I want to find out if that's Dick Tracy or not.
You know, let's just go to the GCD. It probably is. That's Dell. Dell used to license stuff.
And let's see which one. I'm going to rip Super Magician just because that's the cover I like the least. And I'm going to slab Prize Comics and put Bondage cover on the auction for it. Even though, you know, people really prefer the women to be tied up rather than the men.
Okay, Super Comics, number 71. 1 page of Little Joe by Laughingwell. 8 pages of Dick Tracy by Chester Gould.
Oh, it is
4
Dick
pages.
Tracy.
It is Dick Tracy. That's a terrible cover. It's not. There's no credit.
I don't think the cover's terrible. I just think it's not Dick Tracy-like.
So the other strips inside are Winnie Winkle, Harold Teen, Brenda Starr, Moon Mullins, Smitty, Tiny Tim, Clyde Beatty. That's an original story. Little Orphan Annie, Sweeney and Son, The Ripples, and before Dick Tracy, there's Little Joe.
Takes a lot of stories to fill up those 64 pages.
Yeah.
Did comics in this time period have, like, would Super Comics have ads in it? I have no idea.
Doesn't look like it on this one. Let me count them up. 1, 9, 13, 17, 21, 25, 29, 33, 39, 41, 49, 50 though. This one doesn't have ads. Maybe on the back cover.
Huh. So I wonder when comics first started getting ads regularly. Because like in the 70s, all comics had ads.
Yeah.
In the 60s too, even.
I'd say around 1952. Because there's a couple of publishers who go under around that time. Most of the comics that were still 52 pages went down to, there were 48 pages, went down to 32, and they needed the extra revenue. Also, they refused to raise their prices from 10 cents at the time.
That's an interesting question I've never thought about before.
Super magician. So there it's down.
Because that really too is the one of the reasons I don't think I could buy Marvel comics regularly is I can't take the ads interrupting the story.
Can't
After
take
all
it.
these years of having the ads in the back in indie comics,
Can't
house
take it.
ads interrupting the story just drives me
It's
bonkers.
too much.
Too much. I'm going to put the flamingos on top of the yellow box in prize comics. Well, that's obviously where they'd go.
Now I'm going to put the flamingos on the Flaming Hand's pinky finger.
And I'm going to replace one of those smaller boy tied up figures with the dolphin. So the dolphin is going to be in danger.
Dolphin bondage.
Dolphin bondage, we can sell it. And Chris doesn't care. He has no opinions.
What? Tear them all up.
That's not the game.
how you play the game.
Oh,
Maybe if we put in some chains. Where do you want to put the chains?
yeah, the
Ooh,
chains.
I would wrap that flaming hand in chains. Sort of flaming chains around it.
I don't think
making
you
it
could do it.
even
I don't
scarier.
think you know. I don't think you know how to do it.
This is going to be flat chains.
You're right, Chris. If someone gave me a costume with chains all over it, I'd be like, screw you. I'm redesigning this costume.
Yep.
I'm not drawing chains all over it.
I know. That's what I know about you.
All right, so the heroes on that cover of Prize Comics are called Black Owl and his sidekicks Yank and Doodle. Yeah.
He's the Black Owl, and for some reason, because it was WW2, he had to have patriotic sidekicks.
Of course.
Yank and Doodle. And is that Harry Blackstone, the magician?
It is. That issue has 2 Harry Blackstone stories plus a feature where they teach the kids magic tricks.
No, where was Harry Blackstone from?
I don't know.
Like, was he... I know the name. Was he a real person or a fictional character? I don't even know.
Yes, he was a real person. He was a
So
real
he was
stage
a
magician.
magician.
Yep.
I know. How did magicians get famous in 1944?
Are you kidding?
No, I don't
On
know.
On
Instagram.
vaudeville, obviously.
Instagram.
Yes,
No, I don't think vaudeville was. He may have been vaudeville, but I don't think they were still around in 44. But Tit
All right.
Goblin was. I would switch that red curtains with chains. Ah, there you go. On Prize Comics.
Harry Blackstone was from Chicago.
Maybe the 21st pop culture conundrum is who invented well-drawn chains? Easy to draw chains, not well-drawn. Any artist could draw chains. Just to draw them easily over and over.
Funny, because in the 40s, Blackstone was already a veteran magician.
Was he in the movies, do you think?
Doesn't look like it, no.
Let's see. 62 says Harry Blackstone was junior and his father was senior. And his grandfather, it comes from a family of magicians. Ah, okay. So the family got famous way back when and just kept going. Probably in, like in vaudeville, or what was it that came before vaudeville? I can't remember.
The Follies?
The
Follies?
The Follies were on Broadway. There was a name for another type of performance that was around before vaudeville that vaudeville took over for, but I can't remember it now. I read it once in a book on the history of blackface. Mhm. Let me show you one more comic. And we got one more comic this week, which is Rogue Sun, with a cover that's hard to make out.
Oh, and just Blackstone's career signature trick was he had a woman sawed in half trick, but instead of sawing the woman, he had an electric circular blade, and he tied a woman to the table, and the table moved towards the blade.
You mean that trap that like Batman or somebody was always in?
Yeah.
He had that trick, the buzzsaw with the table moving.
Yeah, in the 1920s.
Wow. Huh. Let's see. Our rule on Tit Goblin says our rule on chains that you can just put them everywhere on the on all the covers. Yes, a shroud of chains. Back to this cover that I have a hard time visually parsing. Whoops, dropped it. It's not in mint condition anymore. It's like, what's going on?
Too many colors, too many effects.
Yeah, and the colors are all on sort of the same level, the same brightness. But this guy right here has like this fog that comes out of him. That's what the green is. And I think he's kicking the butt of two Rogue Suns. It's like, how many figures are on that cover? I think 3.
Can't tell.
I know. Gotta say, not my favorite cover. But I must say, though, that, today's artists / colorists really have fire figured out. I'm flashing back to the beginning of computer days where if anybody did fire, they'd use like a filter that made fire, and it looked like a photograph of fire. That was like the cheesy first attempts at fire. But now, like anytime you see fire, I think it's almost always pretty well done.
Mm-hmm. Looks like it's out of control.
Yeah, for some reason I had that realization this week. I'm like, you know what? These guys really got fire down. I heard that Todd McFarlane was the first. He said he was the first one to invent coloring of fire.
He still hasn't figured out fire. He uses fire quite often in his book based around demons and hell, but he still doesn't really figure out how fire works.
He tries to chain the fire.
I think it's the colorists these days who have to figure out fire.
Yeah, Todd probably just scribbles on the page. Do fire here.
BWS, Black with Stars. Not Barry Windsor Smith. But a good issue of Rogue Sun. Rogue Sun's half sister is now another Rogue Sun. They're going to fight people, including this fog guy, trying to save some people from him. Good, solid superhero comic. A little more original than whatever happened to the Crimson Justice. So that's why it makes it. This is a B+. I am the god of hellfire, and I bring you. Tit Goblin says, Chris, do you have a studio at home, or do you draw in your studio? Jared, have you ever set up a studio outside of your basement? I have not ever set up a studio outside my home. Chris, do you draw at home or just in the studio?
I'll sometimes draw at home, but I don't have a studio set up. I just sit on the couch or the kitchen table if I'm gonna do anything there.
It's for that just brings up this past weekend, there's this place near me, the Garner Art Center, which is an old dye factory, like 100 years ago, which, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, they converted into an art center. So this weekend they had it's like an open studio. Open studio there. Like artists have studios in the Garner Art Center. There's also businesses there, restaurants, and if you go, it's literally an old factory ground. Like there's lots of factory buildings and little roads, and it's like nothing like you would think of as a place for businesses. It's not like a strip mall or a mall or anything like that. It's an old factory, so you can drive or walk back in there and go up in this old factory building, and there's now artist studios there. There's now restaurants there. There's all sorts of stuff. So I was up there touring the artist studios or whatever. It was Sunday, so there weren't many artists in there. But one of the guys there was making cutting boards. Have you ever seen these like artisan cutting boards? They're like really woodcraft, nicely done. Sometimes they have checkered patterns of wood. They're done with a nice thick wood or whatever. I had run into them before when I was looking for a drawing board. This is what working at home reminded me of. And so every time I'd go online looking for a drawing board, and I wanted a sort of nice drawing board, a nice looking drawing. So, and I would always run into these cutting boards, cutting boards for like cooks. And they were really nice. Handcrafted cutting boards for cooks, but they don't make drawing boards. And I'm just like, oh. So I actually, in one of the artist studio was the people who were there who made these cutting boards. And I was like, drawing boards. You should make some drawing boards. They're like, really? I'm like, yes. So I gave them my email. We'll see if they make some drawing boards. Because if they do, they should email me and sell me one. Because I want a really nice, pretty drawing board. Because I'm tired of all my old crappy ones. How about you, Chris? Do you like your drawing board that you sit on the couch with?
I'm on the couch drawing. I usually just have my tablet.
Okay. Yeah, I don't draw that often on the couch.
But the drawing board I do have, actually, it's not even here. Here's a backup one I have. It's just like a giant clipboard.
Oh, that's a Masonite one. Yeah. I'm not a fan of those. They're a little too wobbly for me.
This is Masonite? That's what you call it?
Yeah, that's what that is. That's what that material is. At least I think it is. Masonite ones look exactly like that. I suppose they could get plastic to imitate Masonite, but it's probably Masonite.
Yeah, I don't know. Chipboard is what I have in my head. Is that the same thing?
No, I think it's different.
Similar?
I don't remember. I remember how they make chipboard. They take a whole bunch of wood chips and glue them together. I think Masonite is. I don't have to look up exactly what Masonite is again. It might be around that same sort of thing, but it might not even be wood. It might be chips of cardboard. I don't know. But it's usually a little flexible, and that color brown has the handle in it. But the one I ended up going with was a little expensive, but I wanted to. I had to get it from England, and it's a plastic one. I'd rather it be wood, but it's got this. I didn't even really care. Where's the squeeze thing? I didn't even really care that it had this ruler on it. Somewhere is a. There we go. You slide it. I didn't really care that it had this ruler on it, but it comes with it. That slides up and down in case you have to make straight edges and lock it into place. So that little green dot goes to red when you slide it over. So yeah, it's got this parallel rule on it. So I was looking for a really nice wood board, but apparently they don't exist. So I ended up with this really nice plastic one. But if those people who could make those cutting boards could make me a drawing board, I'll be all over it. Even if it cost me $100 like that one did. I had to get it to me from England. England.
Surely they know how to make tables over there.
Out of plastic. Out of plastic. Out of plastic. Have you ever used a drawing board, Paolo?
To do what? Draw?
To write on. If you're handwriting, I suppose.
I write on a notepad.
Okay.
When I'm taking notes. Usually I'm standing up.
Ah.
Because somebody's talking and I'm writing. With my shorthand hieroglyphs, which I sometimes have a hard time decoding.
Do you actually write in shorthand, or is it your own?
It's my own shorthand.
Okay, it's your own abbreviating stuff.
Yeah, we don't have specific shorthand.
Oh, I forgot about this comment. Timey says, "Hey, wait, we haven't heard Chris's opinion on the Deckard question." Do you know what the Deckard question is, Chris? Were you here? I don't think you were here that
I
week.
do not know.
Do you know the movie Blade Runner?
I think I've seen it once, and I don't remember much.
Okay. The
So-
Deckard question is
he a
Is
replicant?
Harrison Ford a replicant or not in the movie Blade Runner?
Yeah, I don't remember enough of the details of that movie to
Ah,
know. But didn't they address that in Blade Runner 2?
The sequel.
I don't know. But the
I don't know.
problem is with addressing it, in the original book, he was not a replicant. The writer of the movie says he was not a replicant. Harrison Ford, who played him, said he was not a replicant. Who's the director? Ridley Scott?
Yeah.
Ridley Scott, the director, says he was a replicant. So, it is up to you, the viewer, to decide if he's a replicant or not. And Paolo and I decided the correct way, and Timey Wimey Limey decided the incorrect way.
Yes.
Now you're up to speed.
Incorrect way.
I side with Harrison Ford. Timey sides with Ridley Scott.
The actual replicant is Edward James Olmos's character.
I know there's a guy that says Tears in the Rain, and that's like some real heavy stuff. That's like all I know about it.
He was a replicant.
Yes.
Let's see, Timey says, interesting myth. Blade Runner dressed it, and Blade Runner 2049 made a point of avoiding the issue. Villeneuve specifically said so.
Villeneuve. Yes.
Yeah, I kind of avoided Blade Runner 2049, so I've never seen it.
Same here. It's not based on an actual book, so it's got Hollywood writing all over it.
Yeah, and you know what it is too? I realized this Times Jared, your attempt at getting an emotional response is quite impressive. Kudos. Why do you think Chris is so emotionless?
You mean trolling your buddy for saying he's wrong,
Yep.
or trying to loop me in somehow?
I'm looping you into it's a callback to how did you survive the bullpen that someone asked earlier on.
Well, all the bullpen did was it makes Jared the person that I'm the most comfortable with arguing with in my entire life.
Chris isn't this argumentative if I'm not around.
Like I know I'm usually afraid, like, oh, if I'm mean to somebody, they're gonna take it the wrong way. But I know that I can just go all the way with Jared, and it will just bounce off of
He
him.
can be as mean as he wants. Let's see. 62 says Blade Runner 2049 is good, long drawn out, interesting twist. It's the same director as Dune. The only reason I wasn't interested really in Blade Runner, I decided this like 20 years ago with Star Trek. It
I
was
remember
kind of
when you
like,
did that. I remember that.
sometimes Chris is just a troublemaker. It was like when some latest Star Trek movie came out, and I just like wasn't interested in it, kind of. And I was like, why am I not interested in the latest Star Trek? I've watched plenty of Star Trek. And that's when I realized no one involved with the Star Treks that I watched and liked was involved with the latest stuff. It was kind of like that episode of the Brady Bunch where Greg Brady got to be Johnny Bravo, the rock star. And the only reason they picked him to be Johnny Bravo was because he fit the outfit. They had a suit that Johnny Bravo wore, and Greg Brady fit it. So they picked him to be Johnny Bravo. The rest was just smoke and mirrors. And that's kind of what it was like with Star Trek. I'm like, the only reason I'm interested in this is because of the brand Star Trek. And what does the brand Star Trek mean to me anymore if all the people who are involved with it aren't involved with it? So that's when I'm like, you know what? If Star Trek wants to get me to watch a Star Trek movie, they have to get me interested in it. They have to do something it has to be like any other movie. You have to get me interested in it somehow without just saying, this is Star Trek. And Blade Runner 2049 was kind of the same way to me. You have to get me interested in this movie without just saying, here's some more Blade Runner. Because I don't want some more Blade Runner. I've already got Blade Runner. And they didn't do anything interesting. Like, I just never got interested in it. And there was enough people saying, it's not that interesting. It's kind of interesting. It's okay. That I was just like, whatever. The branding just won't get me to watch it anymore. You can't get me to watch something with branding. I'm almost tired of John Wick, too. But at least all the same people are involved with John Wick.
I've never seen the John Wick movie.
No?
No, and they're on TV all the time now.
The first one was was a breath of fresh air, kind of. It was Headshot, the movie. It got less fresh as the movies went, but they're still okay.
The new Mission Impossible movie just premiered.
But it's not. Yep. You know what's funny? I hated the first Mission Impossible. Just didn't like it. To me, it was like everything I didn't like in an action movie was in Mission Impossible. So I don't think I watched any Mission Impossible movies for, 20 years. Then I watched like Mission Impossible. What number are they up to?
I have no idea.
7? Let's say 7.
I should know. As the resident expert, I should know, but I don't know.
You should, but so somewhere around Mission Impossible 5, I was like, let me give one of these, because they'd been like Mission Impossible had had like disappeared from my world since I hated Mission Impossible 1 so much. And then by the time they got to 5, I'm like, let me watch a Mission Impossible movie again. And it was all right. I enjoyed it. Then I think I watched the last 2 or 3 Mission Impossible movies. I was like, this isn't so bad. Maybe I have to go back and watch 1 and see if I like it now.
You know what you're like? You know what you're like a lot? Almost every situation that you find yourself in makes you like go like this, makes you go, I was like,
I do a lot of
Yeah. And then there's more that comes after that.
Yeah, I got a thought. Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah. The new one is number 8. It's 62 Lefty Blues. So I think I've seen 5, 6, and 7.
Rob Liefeld posted something about going to the premiere and Tom Cruise still remembering him.
Ah.
Because remember that that Rob Liefeld did the Mission Impossible comic adaptation in '96.
and Tom Cruise didn't like his face, his drawn face, not Rob Liefeld's face.
Wait, Chris, if you're the resident expert on Mission Impossible, why is The Amazing Paris better than Roll in Hand?
Man, that's
I
how
don't-
shameful this is. I don't even understand what you just asked me.
I was about to say the same thing. I don't know what those words are. What did he
You
say?
do realize that Mission Impossible was a TV series in the '60s.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So okay, so you might be misunderstanding. I am a Tom Cruise expert, not a Mission
Oh, that's
Impossible
right.
expert.
He did a whole podcast with Greg Schiegel on They did a podcast for every Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah, not just
Cruising,
Mission Impossible.
right?
Okay,
And
the
Jared was our guest on the episode where we reviewed Cocktail,
Yep. Very early on.
because it was Jared's favorite Tom Cruise movie.
It was either the best show ever or the worst show ever.
Well, too bad I wasn't around. I could have talked to you about Days of Thunder.
There was a lot of Chris and I arguing on the show.
For example,
Let's
on Days of
see.
Thunder, I could explain to you why all the racing action is wrong.
62 Lefty Blues says Ghost Protocol had Brad Bird directing. He did The Incredibles and Ratatouille. Timey says if Tom has successfully completed 7 missions, the term impossible starts to lose meaning somewhat. There you go. Mission inevitable success.
Yeah. But to explain who those characters were, so Roll in Hand was the disguise expert, the original disguise
Okay.
expert. He was played by Martin Landau.
Okay. There's a lot of
and-
mask pulling in that one.
Yeah. Mhm. And when he quit the show, he was replaced by Leonard Nimoy, who played the Amazing Paris.
Ah, okay. The Amazing Paris.
Mhm.
Now those words make sense once they've
Yeah,
been explained.
No, that's how dumb I am. Is that I still don't understand what that was.
He's asking
there-
you who was the better master of disguise
Oh,
in the
okay.
original TV show.
Yeah.
Well, the Amazing Paris was more of a prestidigitator. Prestidigitator.
Prestidigitator. That's it.
Oh, no,
Prestidigitator.
They do one of those. They do like one of those masks like every
Mm.
movie.
That's-
at least one
Prestidigitator.
mask scene.
Is one of those words I have to say out loud to see if I got all the syllables.
Okay. And in the '80s, there was a Mission Impossible revival, entirely shot in Australia with Australian actors. The only American actors were Peter Graves and
Austin Powers was baby.
Mhm.
It's time we let Paolo get to bed
okay.
with some confetti.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to give us balloons
Woohoo! And some lasers.
and lasers and lightning.
Woohoo!
Okay,
What
wait,
was
do
the thumbs down again? Rain. Give me
yeah,
some-
Rain.
This one's. Oh, it's now a thumbs down. Oh, double thumbs down. Oh,
There we go.
clown over my head and thumbs down, and double thumbs up wasn't any. Oh, fireworks. There we go.
Yes.
All right. So everybody have a good week out there. Next week we'll be on Paolo's channel.
Yes. Because
So we'll see you. Hope
Premiere.
Wilson will tell us all about the new live action Lilo and Stitch. Blow by blow.
and is Stitch a replicant?
We don't know. Tune in next week.